So it's always good in a debate to define your terms. So let me tell you what I think capitalism is, or what capitalism actually is, and what I think socialism is, and why I think one is a moral and practical system, and the other is immoral and impractical. Capitalism is a system of freedom. Now, freedom is a tricky word, because everybody's for freedom, right? I could be in front of a group of Marxists, and everybody raised their hand. I mean, we just heard that socialism is a system of freedom. But what does freedom mean? What does freedom mean? Again, definitions. Freedom means the absence of coercion. Freedom means the absence of authority. Freedom means the absence of a gun put to your head where you're told what to do. Whether it's in the name of the proletariat, in the name of your race, in the name of the majority, in the name of Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. A gun put to your head, coercion, force, authority of the church, authority of the state, is anti-freedom. Freedom means the absence of coercion. Capitalism is a system that systematizes the absence of coercion. It eliminates coercion from society by protecting the rights of individuals. Now, what are rights? Wow, we have to define all these things. Rights are freedoms of action. Not freedom of action sanctioned by a majority. Not freedom of action sanctioned by politicians or sanctioned by the authorities. Not freedom of action sanctioned by the church. But freedom of action sanctioned by you as an individual. Then people saying it's too loud and all right, we'll find a middle ground. I yell, I apologize.
The tyranny of the microphone.
The tyranny of the microphone. Your freedom to choose your values using your mind in pursuit of your happiness. That's what capitalism allows. It leaves you free. Free from coercion of other people. Free to pursue your life. Free to choose what path to take for yourself. That's the moral foundation of capitalism. That's why capitalism is moral, because it leaves individuals free to use their mind in pursuit of their own happiness, their own values, which is the ultimate purpose of life. Not to sacrifice for others, not to live for the group, not to live for the collective, but to live for you as an individual, to make your life the best life that it can be, to pursue your individual happiness. Capitalism makes that possible by leaving you free. What you do with it is up to you. And some people don't do much with it. But what you do with it is up to you, and you have the freedom to do with it. So, your values, your choices, that's what capitalism is about. And as a consequence of being moral, it is also the practical system. I mean, one of the things that amazes me about capitalism versus socialism debates is that we're having them. I mean, this is over to the extent that capitalism is being tried, to the extent that it's being tried. Anywhere in the world, at any point in time in the world, it produces freedom and enormous wealth for people. Everywhere, including in Scandinavia, by the way, where they have elements of capitalism, and those elements are what produce the wealth that they then, steal and redistribute. And we can talk about Scandinavia later. But it works. It's worked everywhere. Now, my vision of capitalism, a society with no coercion, has never existed. And certainly in the United States today, we do not live under a capitalist system. This is a mixed economy, lots of coercion, lots of interference, lots of authorities, lots of people voting to redistribute other people's wealth, lots of regulation of businesses, and the government and central planners telling us what to produce, how to produce, when to produce it, how much to pay our employees, when to pay them, what benefits to give them. There's no end to the amount of control government has today on the economy. Less than what some would like. But what we have today is no capitalism. What we have today is a mixed economy. Elements of control, elements of statism, elements of some socialism, and some private property, some businessmen making decisions for themselves, but usually heavily, heavily controlled. That's capitalism. And the more we expand it, the more we allow it, the more we let individual minds free, the richer we get, the better the quality of life, the better life is. The more we restrain it, the more we constrain it, the slower economic growth, the less wealth is created, the poorer we all become. And it's simple. What is the source of wealth? Now again, Marxists typically argue that the source of wealth is labor. No. The source of wealth is the human mind. The source of wealth is ideas. The source of wealth is the entrepreneur, not because he takes risks, not because he deploys capital, but because he has an idea and he is able to deploy that idea. And I know it's hard to understand what CEOs do, and it's hard to understand what capitalists do, and it's hard to understand what entrepreneurs do. But, if you've ever worked in a startup, if you've ever worked in a large company, you know that the laborers, the workers, particularly those who use their hands, need the managers 1,000 times more than the manager needs the worker. Because without the manager, without the idea, without the organization, without the talent to put together global supply chains, which requires massive amounts of talent, this idea that workers can just elect somebody and they can just go and do it is bizarre. But let me quickly define socialism. Socialism, in my view, is either the state or workers' control of the means of production, control of our lives, control of the choices we make in the economic realm. And this idea that you can somehow separate the social and intellectual realm from the material property rights realm is bizarre. If you don't have property rights, you don't have any rights. Property rights are just one manifestation of individual rights, a manifestation of that freedom of action. But if you're free to act, to produce, to create, then you have to be free to keep the product of your labor. And if you can't keep your product of your labor, you have no rights. And you have no right to life, and therefore all other rights are up for a vote. Why limit it? Why cherry pick which rights we're going to have and which rights we don't? I believe we have all the rights that are required for human beings to survive. Free speech, but property, the right to property, because it's a requirement of human life. But I've got 30 seconds, so I'll just say this. Socialism is immoral. It's immoral because it sacrifices an individual to the collective. It's immoral because it violates the rights of the individual in every respect. It places the tyranny of the mob, the tyranny of the majority, over the individual. It denies minority rights. There's only one real minority, the smallest minority, and that's the individual. Socialism rejects that and denies that and suppresses that and stomps all over the individual, and it's immoral.